Want to watch football without the restrictions of blackouts or cable? Check out expressvpn.com to help you get access to all the live games. Sign up today using the link in the description to get 3 free months. Kia ora, brothers. It's the director. Chargers fans, my oh my. What a class of wide receivers we've got in 2022, right? I think everybody's socks were knocked off yesterday with some of the 40 times that we were seeing. Now, of course, whoever was operating the clock or whatever sort of messed up with the second group, so we saw some out-of-these-world times, which since then have been corrected. But still, man, this is a very, very deep class of wide receivers, and it just so happens that the Chargers are in need of drafting a speed wide receiver in this class. So, honestly, we got a lot of options out here if you're a Chargers fan. Do we invest in a wide receiver at pick number 17? That's something I'm going to ask you guys in the comment section below. Actually, 2 questions today. Do we invest in a wide receiver at pick 17? And does this wide receiver class change our status with Mike Williams? I mean, there are some options. Let me know in the comment section below. I'll let you guys know my answer at the bottom of the video. There are some movers on this list. I would say this is more of like my immediate reaction of this wide receiver class and some of the options that the Chargers have, I would say in the early rounds if they do want to go that route. So it should be a really good one, man. Some great names on this list, some solid performances in the combine yesterday. This was probably one of the best combines for the wide receiver class that I've seen in a long time, and I'm very excited for the options that the Chargers have in front of them. So before we do get started, guys, hit us up with a like and sub if you do enjoy this Chargers content. The small amount of time you guys take to hit the like, sub, and bell notification helps me out a lot. Let's get into this one. Lights, camera, action. My top 10 wide receivers of the 2020 NFL Draft. Maybe that's not the right word. There's just some good movers and stuff in here is what we'll say. Some guys that I definitely have my eye on after that combine performance yesterday. We'll start here with an honorable mention in John Mechie. John Mechie, to me, guys, as far as like lists and as far as names of wide receivers that I'm looking at for the Chargers, Mechie is definitely, I had to put his name on this list because I do think he's a solid option pretty much for anybody in this year's class. Did not run the 40, but an overall solid receiver. He should have great speed, great in separation. He did tear his ACL in December, but I do think he's on fast track to recover soon. So John Mechie, we won't talk too much about him because he's not in the top 10 here, but man, he should be good. Now you'll see at the bottom there a player comp. This is a very light comparison of who I think these players sort of look like to me, okay? Don't take it verbatim, but at the same time, I think player comps provide a lot of information in a very short amount of time. So I'm going to be using player comps throughout the NFL draft season, I guess, because while it's not 100% accurate, it does help the viewer and it helps the audience understand and try and get to what I'm trying to explain pretty quickly. So let's move on to the next one, guys. At number 10 for my list here, and again, I wouldn't say Calvin Austin's like a top 10 wide receiver for me, but he did move up quite a bit after yesterday's combine. I kind of expected him to, right? We knew this guy, track star. He was probably, in my mind, gonna be the fastest wide receiver in this class, be it or save it one, which we'll get to a little bit later, but still Calvin Austin running a 4.32. As a comparison, Tyreek Hill in his pro day or in his NFL combine ran a 4.29, so very comparable speeds there. Solid route runner. I think a lot of people, when they see the name Calvin Austin, just assume that this is the fast dude, right? Like he offers speed. Outside of that, maybe we're not paying too much attention, myself included, until I started looking into this dude and seeing some of his traits. I didn't quite know what more he had to offer. But what I saw, man, a solid route runner, very consistent hands. And I think a lot of people, maybe underrate this dude because of his size. 5'8". Again, Tyreek Hill, I think 5'9". There's a place in the NFL for a guy like Calvin Austin. He really did impress me yesterday, and honestly, just, I think the biggest thing I need to get across is that he impressed me in more aspects than just speed. Certainly the Chargers need a speed guy. Calvin Austin, to me, is one of those dudes that could elevate beyond that facet and he would fit on this team absolutely beautifully. So I'm going to say his player comp is maybe a soft Tyreek, but more of a, Dimitri Bird from the Chicago Bears, kind of a hybrid of those two guys, but still very nice player. Very excited to see what he does as far as in the pros. And I'm hoping that the Chargers, let's say the Chargers decide to go defensive back in the first round. Calvin Austin would be a very, very big target for me in the second round. I don't even know if he would make it to us in our second round pick, but still Calvin Austin, great combine. And I'm excited to see if the Chargers, have their eye on this guy as well. Next up at number 9, we got Skye Moore. Man, when you talk about like some of the guys that stood out in the combine specifically, I don't know if anybody stood out more than Skye Moore. This guy absolutely helped his draft stock. 5'10", ran a 4.41. Again, a very fast group of wide receivers this season. And Skye Moore, again, some of his best traits: great hands, elite route running, and I would see him, as like a versatile gadget player, maybe more of like a Kadarius Toney than a Sterling Shepard, but I do see some similarities between him and Shepard as well. And I think what the Chargers need and what Skye Moore does offer is that he plays very, very well from the slot. And in terms of yards after the catch, I think he offers a lot of playability there. This is one that I think is a very good fit for the Chargers. I'm starting to wonder if he would be available in the second round at the Chargers pick anymore. I think he helped his draft stock tremendously. If he makes it out of the first round, I'm not quite sure if he makes it to us anymore. So Skye Moore, very good option there. I don't know if he'll be available for the Chargers, though. Next up at number 8, we have Christian Watson. I'll be honest, I was high on Christian Watson even before the combine because I loved his measurables. When it comes to, let's be honest, an ex-Madden YouTuber, going over some of the traits of these guys in the NFL draft, Christian Watson's exactly the kind of guy you want to target. 6'4", insane speed, great hands, as well as special teams. This guy, we'll get to that in just a second, okay? So he ran a 4.36, right? He's got a big frame. You guys know that. That speed is absolutely insane for a player of his stature. I'm going to say that. You do not see a 6'4" wide receiver run a 4.36 very often. So immediately right off the bat, he offers an insane amount of value just because of that. But one big thing that I was reading on as far as his contributions at North Dakota State, this guy was a core special teamer, and specifically as a returner. And he stood out very much so with that. And that's really rare to see, once again, a guy of his stature, playing returner for any team. And that just goes to speak to how athletic this guy is, man. Some insane speed. This is one that very much so intrigues me. Again, I had him as like a late or a mid-second rounder, somebody that the Chargers could realistically, target in the second round. But I think that speed really did help his draft stock. And again, I'm wondering if he would be available to the Chargers in the second round. Huge hands, great contested in contested catching. I love everything about Christian Moore. I think that he's a big frame speed option. His player comp for me is going to be a much better version of Valdez-Scantling of the Green Bay Packers. Scantling has himself some issues holding on to the ball, whereas I do not see Christian Watson having that issue at all. And again, special teamer. He fits what the Chargers want so much. But again, I just don't know if he'll be available unless maybe the Chargers decide to trade up from. Again, this is a situation where I'm like, hey, Chargers, we need a cornerback pretty bad. Even with this draft class, I still think you have to consider cornerback very, very highly in the first round. But if you need to go out there and get a wide receiver that you want, Christian Watson's one of those guys that I don't mind trading, back into the late first or into the early second round to acquire. Christian Watson, definitely high on my list for Chargers fans to watch out for. Next up, at number 7 is George Pickens. I'm a little shocked that not more people are talking about George Pickens because, again, yes, he had the injury concern, tore his ACL last spring, maybe a bit of a short memory there, but at 6'3", he ran a 4.47. This is a perimeter guy. I'm going to skip to the bottom of the list right here just for a second so that Chargers fans understand what I'm trying to get at. Mike Williams is my comparison. Bodies out his coverage pretty consistently, great as far as, contested catches. And then another thing I was reading on is an amazing blocker. These are all things that the Chargers covet. You guys remember where it says, hey, if you're a wide receiver but you can't block, you're not going to be on my team? Very much so fits what the Chargers culture is trying to build out there in LA. So George Pickens, to me, I don't know, again, if the Chargers pick him up. It really does depend. I would say the only reason the Chargers would pick him up is if for any reason we decide to move on from Mike Williams, because again, he does remind me of Mike Williams quite a bit. Maybe not as athletic as Mike, but at the same time, he does a lot of what Mike could do. Could the Chargers still pick him up in the second round? Maybe. You could talk about George Pickens and Mike Williams on the outside with Keenan Allen in the slot. That's still pretty lethal. But as far as what the Chargers need, maybe he doesn't fit the bill. Still, I think he's a great player and a great option for pretty much anybody in the NFL draft this year. Next up at number 6, we got Jahan Dotson. Man, Penn State, 5'11". This guy's absolutely fantastic. I think, again, he's one of those guys that really did help their draft stock yesterday. Ran a 4.43, but I think the thing that stood out to a lot of people was the way he ran those routes. Incredibly smooth route runner, natural separation. He's going to get open. Jahan Dotson really just does feel like the complete package. Whereas, there's other guys higher on this list that are getting talked about more. I think Jahan Dotson offers a lot of the same things. High yak potential as well. My player comp for him is going to be Deontay Johnson. I like Dotson quite a bit, man. I think, again, whoever lands this kid is going to be very excited to add them to their football team. I could easily see him as a dominant wide receiver 2, or even a featured wide receiver 1 down the line. Jahan Dotson, man, do not sleep on this name. Now let's get into the top 5 of the wide receivers I got my eye on after yesterday. Instant reaction in today's video. Next up is Drake London. Now, Drake London didn't run the 40, okay? Bad segue. But he still has good speed. If you watch his tape, he's got decent speed, especially for his frame. 6'5" out of USC. There's a lot of things that Drake London's got going for him that, NFL head coaches and GMs really do covet in today's NFL. Contested catch specialists, right? If, let's say, hypothetically, Mike Williams does hit the open market, somebody's going to pay him, man. What Mike Williams offers our team is something that isn't, readily available to all teams in the NFL. These guys are not a dime a dozen, right? It's hard to find that kind of skill set, and Drake London definitely brings it at a very high level. He could also be a very dominant run blocker. I've seen a lot of, people talking about, how good the run blockers could be in this class, and he has the potential, in my opinion, to be the best wide receiver in this class depending on where he lands. My player comp for him is going to be Mike Evans, and again, it is really hard to argue against that when you watch his tape. Drake London, we talk about guys number 1 through 4, 1 through 5, but easily to me, if he goes to a good team with a great, offensive passing attack, I think he could end up being the best wide receiver in this class. Huge presence in Drake London. Next up at number 4, one of my favorite guys I got to witness yesterday, Chris Olave out of Ohio State. Man, dude, I love Chris Olave. Some people are a little softer on him than I am. I totally get it. When it comes to the Chargers picking at, pick number 17, does Olave make sense for the team? I'm going to say I definitely wouldn't be upset with it, but I do think it might be a little bit high. I do like Chris Olave quite a bit, though. If there's a scenario out there where the Chargers trade back into the first round or maybe trade down just a little bit, Chris Olave would be such a big name to add to this team. Overall, he's got all the tools to succeed, in my opinion. By the way, we did skip his 40 time. He ran a 4.39, which, again, last night, Twitter blew up when he ran a 4.26, but again, later it was corrected to 4.39, which still sub 4.4, very fast in the NFL, and I think he would be a dominant presence. Again, I did say overall he has all the tools to succeed. I think he's a great route runner. I think he's got great hands. I think he's got great speed. Overall, just a very complete wide receiver to me. He would pair very great with Justin Herbert, offering that speed and honestly the ability to get open. His player comp for me is going to be Calvin Ridley, and honestly, I do like that player comp quite a bit. I think he offers a lot of the same things, and man, Chris Olave, do not sleep on this man to the Chargers. Again, do we pick him at 17? I don't know, but I think there's a world where we can kind of get around that and figure out a way to get him at a value. All right. Next up at number 3, everybody's going crazy about Garrett Wilson, man, the other man out of Ohio State. Ran a 4.38. I would say, Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, some would say 1A, 1B. I still do think Garrett Wilson is definitely a better prospect, in terms of overall readiness to play in the NFL. He's one of the most NFL-ready wide receivers you're going to see in this draft. Dominant route running, acceleration, hands. His acceleration definitely is something that, separation, I should say, is definitely something that stood out to me. This man is going to get open. You give him a shot, you toss the ball in his direction, more than likely he's going to come down with it. I think this is a good way to put it. Not Drake London. I think I view Chris Olave as a dominant wide receiver 2 fringe 1, whereas I view Garrett Wilson as a dominant wide receiver 1. I think he could definitely be featured in any system in the league. He can do it all. Very complete player. My player comp for him is going to be Stephon Diggs. Yeah, I think I like that. I think I like that dude. Stephon Diggs, a lot of similar traits there. And Garrett Wilson, man, he's going to be a great player at the next level. Next up at number 2, and I'll be honest, guys, this is one that I don't know a lot of people are going to agree with me on, but I'm going to go ahead and say it anyway. My number 2 is going to be Jameson Williams, okay? And I think people will agree with me as far as like where he's ranked on this list, but they're not going to agree with me on where I stand with Jameson Williams, okay? 6'1". I've heard he's 6'2", but we'll have to wait and see maybe from his pro day. Did not participate in the combine, and we know this is because he tore his ACL late in the season in that championship game, I do believe. But last I heard, as far as on the grapevine, on Bleacher Report, and on these other news articles that I keep up with daily, last I heard he's on quick pace to return. And I do think this does shift my mentality and whether or not he's worth the risk. Because in my opinion, we'll go over his pros here real quick. In my opinion, insane speed. I think he would have ran the fastest 40 time yesterday had he been healthy, had he not been nursing an injury. That is how fast he is. Honestly, if I had to like spitball a time for Jameson Williams, I would have put him at like a 4.25, a 4.26, something like that. I think he definitely would have turned heads in terms of speed. But he offers much more than that, and that's what gets me excited about first-round guys. Speed is very important, and it's something that the Chargers need to target this offseason. But he's dominant in other areas of his game. Separation, big plays. You get the ball in his hands. We all know the Joe Lombardi system early in the year this year, right? He loves them bubble screens. I kept saying, Joe, we don't got the players out here that can take a bubble screen the distance. All of a sudden, we get a guy like Jameson Williams, man. His acceleration, his ability to get away is on the next level. So all of a sudden, director, on board for the bubble screen if we've got a Jameson Williams. What I'm saying is that his yards after the catch could be insane. He can take, a short pass and turn it into a big play at any given moment. He's got a nice frame. I would say he's got a nice size as far as height. If it weren't for that torn ACL, I think Jameson Williams would definitely be number 1 on my board. And I think in terms of what the Chargers need this season in a wide receiver, if we are going after a speed guy, I think the most dominant speed guy that you can get in terms of what he'll offer the Los Angeles Chargers would be Jameson Williams. So in my opinion, if Jameson Williams, and there's a good shot that somebody drafts him before us, if Jameson Williams is available at 17, let's say, okay, and the Chargers are looking at, let's say, the 3rd or 4th best, cornerback, let's say we're looking at like a Chris Olave or a Jahan Dotson, picking up from that spot, and Jameson Williams happens to be available, I'm honestly not going to blink. I'm picking up Jameson Williams. Because in my mind, if he was not injured, he is a top 5 prospect in this draft. I think he would be drafted top 5. And in terms of his impact on any team with the Los Angeles Chargers, he could become a superstar. So I love Jameson Williams. My player comp for him is going to be a prime Deshaun Jackson, back when every single week you had no idea, at any given moment, is he going to bust off a big touchdown? So Jameson Williams, probably my favorite prospect in this season's draft, okay? And then lastly, at number 1, to nobody's surprise, we got Trailon Burks. Burks, to me, I think in terms of overall look at these wide receivers, is definitely the one you want to go after consensus-wise in the NFL because of what he does offer. 6'2", ran a 4.5 flat out of Arkansas. He looks fantastic. I think most people would say Trailon Burks is the consensus wide receiver 1 in this class, and it's for good reason. Huge frame, big plays, uses his body appropriately to body out his coverage and come down with big plays. Again, he does a lot of what Mike Williams does, but I would say maybe he does it a step better at this point. Potentially, he could do it a step better. And this is what I was talking about before in the NFL. Guys like this, again, are not a dime a dozen. and teams really value the kind of playability you can get out of a guy like Trailon Burks. Solid speed and athleticism on top of that big frame. A lot of people thought he might measure out at 6'3". I think he's like 6'2" and change. Very, very dominant wide receiver in this class. And again, what if the chart... I don't think in any world that Trailon Burks falls to us, and I think that's another big reason why I'm so high on Jameson Williams, is because of Jameson Williams' injury. Yes, that is of a concern, but it opens up a door for him to slide. I do think realistically Jameson Williams could be available to us at 17, whereas Trailon Burks, I don't see anything. I don't see any world where he falls to us at 17. There's a lot of teams up ahead of us that do need a wide receiver, and Trailon Burks is pretty much as good as it gets. My player comp for him is going to be A.J. Brown / DK Metcalf, and that gives you a pretty good idea of what he's going to offer at the second level. So let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. To answer your guys' question as far as does this change our mindset and whether or not we should re-sign Mike Williams, to me it's still a no. Okay, because Mike Williams, the guys that I think can make a big difference that do what Mike Williams does, to me are, I think where the Chargers would likely be able to get him are Drake London and George Pickens. Okay, and both of those guys I don't see as good as Mike Williams, at least not right now. They definitely could turn out that way. What I think the Chargers desperately need is speed. Okay, and when you start talking about speed, there are options available to the Chargers, including Chris Olave, including honestly a Jameson Williams, including a Calvin Austin who could be had in the second round. And that does offer flexibility to what the Chargers can do on draft night. If we need a cornerback still at this point and we got a good option in front of us like a Booth or a Sauce Gardner, you got to take that guy. But this does leave options for the Chargers to still get a speed option later in the draft, where there are a lot of guys that, you know, graded or that ran a sub 4.4 this season, and you can use a lot of those guys in different ways. So I don't know, man. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. And there was one more question that I had asked you guys at the top of the show. Do we invest in wide receiver at pick 17? I think a big thing that I'm seeing from people, I did this awesome, a jersey swap for Chris Olave yesterday. A lot of people were concerned that we are veering our attention away from defense because we got excited at the 40 times we saw yesterday in the combine. And to that, I do agree. But at the same time, you have to remember what comes before the combine, and that's the NFL free agency, okay? The Chargers, without as much money as we've got, our needs are going to look a lot different come draft night. I would be shocked if the Chargers didn't spend, at least $30 million invested into that defense before we even hit draft night. And that could change the priority of what the Chargers do. With that number 17 pick. If a guy like Jameson Williams is available, or if they really love a Chris Olave, heck, maybe even a Garrett Wilson's available to us that pick. I still think that's pretty slim. If they like one of those guys a lot, I think there's no reason not to pull the trigger on 17 if our needs have shifted enough by draft night because of the free agents that we signed. So that's kind of where my view is on that. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. This has been The Director. Hit us up with a like and sub on your way out if you did enjoy this content. We'll see you next time. And as always, bolt up and stay frosty. Jameson Williams, I am planting my flag.